Hey, it's Colleen.
Hi, it's Kate.
And it's Megan.
And we're the
Three Scheme Queens. Join us as we discuss popular hoaxes and give you our comedic take on what is fact and what is fiction. If you have a sense of humor and an open mind, come take this journey with us.
We'll tell you what we think, and we'll try to prove it to you.
Is this thing on?
Hey guys,
Hey guys, we're all back together.
how are you feeling today?
The question is really, how are you feeling?
Oh, after I was penetrated by dolphins.
No, hold on. She said you weren't penetrated. You were just rammed a little.
Rammed a little. What part of me got rammed?
You know, they just take their little beaks and they shove you underwater.
When she said it, she was like, did you realize that also could mean she was sexually assaulted?
Yeah, but I just was trying to move on. So you're all recovered.
Yes, the dolphins treated me well.
The
We
dolphin did
talked
not treat the
after.
dolphin.
We talked after.
Hmm.
Was it the same dolphins that surrounded the guys from
Yeah.
space?
How come nobody's talking about that enough?
Do you think it was CGI?
No, I think it was real.
Oh, there's a
Well,
conspiracy out there.
there's
thinks-
one that the landing looked a little CGI.
Oh,
But then there's another one that's like, yeah, how
Oh, you
weird
think
is it
so?
that all the dolphins
right,
swam up?
right. You know how different their faces look now.
yeah, aging,
Yeah.
space,
Yeah, we know this. The studies show that.
time space continuum.
Yeah.
You know,
Hope they're gonna get some
Botox,
some money.
Free?
No,
No, they only got $5 a day,
yeah.
and that's insane.
$5. How do you only get $5 a day?
Well, I think it's their per diem. I think they're still getting paid. They're not
per diem, $5 a day.
$5 a day
For
per diem.
overtime.
Really covers like your meals,
Right.
Well,
and I'm sure they were just eating like MREs. up there, so-
dehydrated. Yeah, I was gonna say. Megan, did you ever eat MREs?
I did.
Were they good?
Not particularly. I mean, there's like sometimes you get like some M&Ms or something in there.
Yeah.
Did you get a cigarette?
No.
Oh.
But they're like 4,000 calories per pack,
Damn.
and it's like tastes kind of like Chef Boyardee. A lot of them.
It's like usually it's supposed to be like your one meal for the day.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Well, I think too, you're like the Marines out there in the front line are like
That alert.
burning a lot of calories,
Right.
Like
They're doing
Survivor.
some rocks.
Yeah. So is it time for our
Drink check.
Drink check.
So today,
I like this. This is good.
It's a wicked piss I drink.
well, it's the Ward 8, which came up when I Googled
What 8?
is a classic Boston cocktail.
I had no idea what it was.
Our local Bostonian has never heard of
I've
it, though.
never heard of it, but I'm not a drinker.
So the Ward 8, though, let me just tell you guys, apparently this cocktail was created in 1898 at a bar called the Loch Ober Cafe.
Hmm.
Do you know it?
Mm.
Okay. It was named after Ward 8, a district in Boston where a political figure, Martin Lomasny, was running for office. And the story goes that his supporters wanted a special drink to celebrate his victory in the election. So it's a combination of rye whiskey, which Bourbon Boy had to provide for us
Yep.
because I only had bourbon.
And it's Wild Turkey 101, right? In case anyone, we just love Wild Turkey 101.
You guys have brought me over on the wild turkey. I used to be like a big bullet girl, but
Bullet's good too.
yeah, but
Wild Turkey, man. It's
Yeah.
so good.
It's good.
Goat.
and then I have some fresh lemon juice, some fresh orange juice. I squeezed
watched
by
you
hand myself.
Some strong hands.
And
And then man out there, she's got strong hands.
And a splash of grenadine over a ice ball.
It's delicious.
And it tastes like a little grapefruity almost, we decided, which
Mhm.
is not usually my vibe, but it's pretty good.
And maybe it's also because it looks like a grapefruit drink.
So that's what we're doing.
I'm a little
Mm.
buzzed.
So guys, you can tell when we haven't been together because it
It's very sporadic.
It's chaotic.
really is off the rails. Today we're talking a current event,
Woo!
if you will. A Boston story.
Free Karen.
So I can't wait. Colleen has strong opinions, but I'm convinced she only has about 10% of the story.
Yeah, I watched this entire storyline on TikTok.
Yeah.
In real time, though.
So I can't wait.
Real time.
Yeah. I can't wait to hear what you think after this. So I'll give the summary and then we'll kind of take a poll, okay?
Okay.
So let's rewind for a moment to January 28th, 2022. So Boston police officer John O'Keefe and his girlfriend, Karen Reed, had been fighting. They decided to decompress and meet up in a bar in Canton, Massachusetts, knowing that a blizzard was coming and they were likely going to be snowed in for a few days.
Oh,
I've
blizzard.
always
Was it a nor'easter?
It was a nor'easter.
I've always wanted to be snowed in with someone. I think it would be so fun.
So romantic.
Aren't you snowed in with
Very
your
romantic.
family all the time?
Yeah.
Not that kind of snowed in. Maybe I just want to be snowed in by myself.
I think that's what you want.
So Karen met her boyfriend and his buddies at a bar about a mile from John's home, and then they went across the street to meet up with a few more of his friends. After last call, the couple was invited to an after party about 2.5 miles away at the home of Boston police officer Brian Albert. Karen claims she didn't enter the house for reasons we will get to later, but she dropped off John and then drove herself to his home where she allegedly fell asleep on the couch.
Allegedly.
When Karen awoke around 5 a.m., she noted that John had not come home and began searching for him with the help of some friends. They found him dead in the snow in front of the Albert residence, eventually leading to the arrest of Karen Reed. Prosecutors allege that Karen backed into John with her SUV and left the scene, causing John O'Keefe to die due to a skull fracture and hypothermia.
Oh.
She was charged with second-degree murder, manslaughter, motor vehicle homicide, and leaving the scene of a deadly crash. The defense, however, claims that John O'Keefe was likely killed by someone inside the house and that the witnesses, many of whom were affiliated with the Boston Police Department, utilized their resources to cover up the true cause of death and frame Karen Reed. The trial, lasting more than 2 months and including more than 600 pieces of evidence and 70 witnesses, ended in a mistrial last July.
Oh.
The foreman told the judge the divergence in our views are not rooted in a lack of understanding or effort, but deeply held convictions that each of us carry, ultimately leading to a point where consensus is unattainable. The jury of 6 men and 6 women were hung after 4 days of deliberation. Polling of the juries revealed that they had all agreed that she was not guilty of murder or leaving the scene, but had been confused about how to deliver a partial verdict. She is currently being retried on the same charges.
Oh.
So this trial, at the time we're recording, is in the process of jury selection.
Okay, it just started, right?
Yep. So before I get into the details, so you think she's innocent? You said free Karen Reed.
I'm pro Karen.
Okay.
But
What do you base that on?
10% of knowledge.
But do you have any? Is there anything you've seen on TikTok that you're?
They're all rats. It's the police department covering their own
Okay.
asses.
Um.
I know the owners of the house
Mhm.
are very suspicious.
Okay.
The wife and the husband.
Okay.
The scene of the crime is not clean.
Okay.
And it was poorly inspected.
Okay.
I don't think, even if she did kill him, there's evidence to say she did.
Okay.
My thought is that she killed him.
Okay.
But is there
But-
evidence to prove without a doubt? I don't think there's evidence to prove without a
Because
doubt.
my thought is that usually it's the person that's closest to them that
Mhm.
kills them.
Mm-hmm.
They're always the number one suspect.
right.
So,
But he was a Boston police officer.
Yeah, as some true crime aficionados,
You ever watch The Departed?
we know that it is almost always the significant other, right? Before I get into the details, you were telling me that there's like not really a great reputation in Boston.
Well, the mob.
So,
White
but-
Soldier was like the Irish mob runner,
Uh-huh.
and he just owned the Boston Police Department.
Mm.
Like he had roots everywhere.
But then he got arrested and then he get like killed in prison.
Well, there's just been like long ongoing history of dirty work.
Okay. So the locals know.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let me give you the facts here. So John O'Keefe was born on December 8th, 1975. He grew up in Braintree, Massachusetts, before graduating from Northeastern University and going on to earn a master's in criminal justice from UMass Lowell. He had moved to Canton to help his brother-in-law raise his niece and nephew following the death of his sister from an aggressive brain tumor. And 2 months after her death, his brother-in-law also died of a massive MI.
Oh.
So he actually stepped up as the guardian for these 2 children. And he was working as a Boston police officer for 16 years at the time of his death in 2022. And then we have Karen Reed. She was born in 1980. She grew up in Massachusetts and was living in Mansfield at the time of the crime. She graduated from Bentley University with a bachelor's and master's degree in finance.
finance.
Yeah, what we should have done.
Yeah.
She worked as a financial analyst at Fidelity Investments, and she also worked as an adjunct professor at Bentley University.
So she's smart.
So the two of them met at his sister's 30th birthday party and briefly dated before going their separate ways. And then during COVID, they reconnected via Facebook and had been dating for 2 years at the time of his death. So leading up to John's death, the couple's relationship had been pretty strained. During an Aruba trip for New Year's, Karen accused John of hanging all over a friend of his, even kissing her, but the friend and John both deny this. They had also been fighting on the day of the murder about her spoiling his niece and nephew, who were 14 and 10 at the time. So it just seems like there was a lot of, I would say, a lot of alcohol abuse amongst these. Like when you hear just
Kind of like a toxic relationship.
how much they're drinking, yeah. And there was a lot of tension in the relationship. Like, honestly, it kind of sounds like they had talked of breaking up prior to this. Maybe this relationship had run its course. So anyway, as I mentioned, they decide to meet up in Canton at some bars, knowing that a blizzard's coming. And we see John on his security camera moving his vehicle out of the garage into the driveway and then hopping into his buddy's car. And we know they headed to C.F. McCarthy's. Security cameras show Karen arriving at C.F. McCarthy's bar at 8:51 p.m. and greeting John. They have a few drinks, and then they go across the street to the waterfall, arriving there at 10:54 p.m. So this is like another bar. And when they go over to the waterfall, they meet up with 4 couples and a friend. So let's talk about who these people are because they're all big players. Okay.
Mm.
So we have Brian and Nicole Albert, who live at 34 Fairview Road, where whatever crime happened eventually takes place.
Okay.
So very important. Remember who they are. Brian was Boston police sergeant and interestingly had a brother who was a detective in the Canton Police Department who got in trouble for there was an alcohol.
Dirty.
It was a DUI, but he was not there that night. And then Chris and Julie Albert. So Chris is one of Brian's brothers,
Mm-hmm.
and he's a local politician and board member who owns a pizzeria. He killed someone while driving drunk or something.
Geez, yeah.
So, anyway, he is John O'Keefe, our victim's neighbor. So it's like just a very small town here. Everyone's involved. And remember them because John might have had some beef with their son, who's going to come into this story later.
Okay.
And then Matthew and Jennifer McCabe. So Jennifer McCabe is who you probably saw a lot of on TikTok. She's like very annoying.
Yeah.
Jennifer McCabe is Nicole Albert's sister. So she's a sister-in-law of Brian Albert, who owns the house, 34 Fairview Road, which is going to be the scene of this crime. And then there's another couple who were not cops, and they aren't really involved too much because they go home early due to weather. So they don't go to the after party. Yeah, they're probably really relieved about that.
Right.
But they do say that what they saw at the bar of John and Karen, they were like really lovey-dovey that night. They didn't see any signs of tension or anything like that.
Okay.
And then there's the token single guy, Brian Higgins. He's an ATF agent. He has quite a story, but we're going to get to that later.
ATM agent?
ATF, alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. So another law enforcement agent. So they stay at the waterfall for about 90 minutes before leaving at last call. Jennifer McCabe invites them to her sister's house where everyone is gathering for this after party at the Alberts' residence. So on camera at the bar, we see John leaving and he has a cocktail glass in his hand. Karen claims it was her vodka soda because she says that she really wasn't drinking as much as it appears that night. She was kind of like nursing these drinks.
Mm-hmm.
And so she admits like they took this cup from the bar. Who's that sound like?
Me.
Yeah. But you take like empty cups from the bar.
Yeah, well, I finished my drink.
Yeah.
And I
With-
throw it in my purse.
With them for like a little roadie. So they leave the bar.
Is that legal?
Yeah.
No.
But it was
they're
during COVID?
They're 2022. They also know clearly they're all wasted and driving.
Right.
Like, clearly the law doesn't apply to
They
any
don't,
of that.
and they are the law.
And she says in the documentary that just came out, she's like, this is what everyone does in Canton. Like, you just drink and drive. And like, yeah, I mean, you're with the police, so who's gonna stop
Who's
you?
gonna stop you?
Yeah.
Dirty.
That's so scary. You drink and drive?
In a snowstorm.
Yeah, that's so scary.
So they leave the bar at 12:11 a.m. and there are some back and forth texts and calls between John and Jen McCabe trying to coordinate. And it gets very interesting because a lot of the calls I'm going to talk about in text messages, these people all deleted after the fact. Like, so what are they trying to hide?
Yeah, for
So
real.
we know,
But we can still access the messages, right?
correct, but we also know that they like
Deleted
deleted them.
Mm,
So
dirty.
At 12:23, the car pings at 34 Fairview Road, and John's Apple Watch shows him taking 80 steps before it stops detecting activity.
Okay.
At 12:25. At 12:27, Jen sends some texts that are like, hey, pull up behind me. Are you here? That kind of thing. And at 12:30, we know his phone, which they were using to Waze to this house, disconnects from the Bluetooth in Karen's car because Karen is driving the car.
Okay.
At 12:31, we see that, there's like a black box in cars, which I didn't know. Which
I didn't know that. Yeah.
So looking at the black box in the car, I guess they're able to determine that at 12:31, Karen drives in reverse for a half a second at 24.2 miles per hour for 62.5 feet. From 12:31 to 12:34, John O'Keefe takes 36 steps, which would be about 80 feet, and he manually closes his phone for the last time at 12:32.
Okay.
Now, at 12:36, Karen Reed connects to John's Wi-Fi at his house. So we know at 12:36 she is back at his house.
Right.
She starts like hammer calling John, leaving him all these nasty voicemails. And so that starts at 12:41, and there's a voicemail where you can actually hear her, like the garage door going down, her entering the house, and her heels clicking, and she's screaming like, "You're an effing loser, F yourself, John, I effing hate you." I think she calls him a pervert at some point, like a lot of really nasty voicemails.
Oh, wow.
Now, the nephew and the niece live with him, right? So the nephew was at a sleepover. The niece was home alone. So the niece says at 4:30, Karen wakes her up and says, John didn't come home, and she doesn't have the number for the McCabe's. So she says, can you call Jennifer McCabe for me? And so at this point, I guess there's about 6 inches of snow on the ground. They call Jennifer McCabe at 4:53 a.m. And then eventually their other friend, Karen Roberts, who lives just down the street. And apparently Karen Reed is like, John didn't come home. We had a fight. What if he's dead? What if a snowplow hit him? I don't remember anything from last night. I drank so much I don't remember anything.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. We see then at 5:07 a.m. Karen backing out of the garage. This is like all on the security camera at John's house, and drives over to McCabe's to meet up with Jen and Carrie Roberts. They all get in a car with Carrie driving to look for him. They're like, you know what? Let's head back to the house. Maybe he came home. They go back to the house. He's not there. So they go back out again, and they pull up in front of the Alberts home. And so like in the testimony in court, Jen and Carrie claim that they pulled up in front of the Albert house and that it was just snow everywhere, they couldn't see anything, but that Karen is like, oh my gosh, she's right there. And she like leaps out of the car and runs over. I will also say, I think that Karen might have some mental health issues.
Oh, they always do.
She's a little crazy. She also might have still been drunk in this morning. Again,
I'm sure.
we're going to get to that.
She drank so much and it's 4:30 in the morning. How are you sober?
Yeah. So she's like running all over the place and like kind of chaotic and crazy.
And there's like a bunch of girls with her.
The 2 girls I just
Yeah,
told.
yeah.
There's 2 girls. So now they call 911. They find John in the snow, dead. And they call 911. And again, we have mixed reports here about whether she was yelling things like, I hit him, or not. We have varying reports. So EMS is working on him. They take him to the hospital. Meanwhile, Karen calls her dad and is like, I think John is dead. I want to die. And so he has the police temporarily put a psych hold on her, which again, I think based on her behavior, she probably has a history.
Right.
And you don't just like know to put a psych hold on somebody.
Yeah. And
unless they need to.
It didn't last
Right.
for like the full 72 hours either. Like she was just there for a couple hours. But they put a psych hold on her and so they take her to the hospital. And Karen says that John, they're working on him 2 doors down from this room that she's in. And they work on John for 2 hours before declaring him dead at 7:59 a.m.
Because he was too cold.
Because you're not dead till you're warm and dead.
Yep.
Yeah, you got to warm people up before you can declare
Right. That's what I'm saying.
I got you. Because we're going to get to the cause of death in a minute.
Yeah.
Karen's dad notifies her that, hey, John's dead. So then Karen gets discharged and she and her dad and her brother go to check on the kids. They go back to John's house and they claim that John's brother was there. He was totally normal. He told her that he had seen the body and it looked like John had been in a fight. But John's mom, however, was like very cold to them. And she said, well, I think he'd been hit by a car. The medical examiner actually ruled the cause of death as blunt impact injuries to the head and hypothermia. And they say the medical examiner did not find, quote, any obvious signs of an altercation or a fight, but the manner of death was undetermined.
Okay.
So now let's fast forward.
Okay.
February 2nd. She is arrested for the first time. She pleads not guilty to manslaughter, motor vehicle homicide, and leaving the scene of a motor vehicle collision causing a death. A grand jury is convened on June 10th, and she's again arrested on charges of second-degree murder, manslaughter.
Wait. I have a question.
Yeah.
Where exactly was he found in the house, in front of the house? Like in the driveway?
That is very interesting, and we're going to get to that.
Okay.
But the way this is set up is like there's the driveway. It's kind of on the right side of the house.
Uh-huh.
And he was found like in the front left corner of the yard,
Mm-hmm.
which we come to find out is not actually their property.
Oh,
So if you wanted to dump a body and you didn't want to have to like tell anyone that this guy had died in your property before you sell your house or something, isn't that a brilliant way to do it?
Yep.
But we get ahead of ourselves.
Okay.
So a grand jury is convened on June 10th, and she's again arrested on charges of second-degree murder, manslaughter, or operating under the influence of alcohol, and leaving the scene of personal injury or death. She's arraigned on the new charges in O'Keefe's death, and she pleads not guilty in the Norfolk Superior Court in Dedham and was released on a $100,000 bail.
Okay.
So here's the case the prosecution presents. So this is their theory. So a forensic toxicologist estimated that Karen's blood alcohol content would have been between 0.13 and 0.29 at
Would have been.
12:45 a.m.
Would have been. Did they get blood samples from her?
the next morning.
Okay.
And so the next morning, she had a BAC of about 0.08. So she was technically
Still drunk.
at 9 a.m. the next morning.
Oh my goodness.
No, that's a lot to drink.
And so based on that, they go back and they're like, she's probably between 0.13 and 0.29.
How would she not have alcohol poisoning?
I think
she's a chronic
I think
drinker.
they're probably. I will say it was weird too that on the documentary she kept being like, "Let's go back and have a drink," and I kept being like, "I feel like if I had been through this, I might be like,
Yeah.
no more booze." I digress. They say that she was mad, she was drunk. We know she did this 3-point turn out of a driveway, but they claim that she intentionally backed into John because they'd been fighting all day. She was mad at him. He gets out of the car, she intentionally backs into him and then flees the scene. And they did find when they found him, he was missing one of his shoes, which apparently is like very common in a car strike.
Yeah.
It's like knocks the people out of their shoes. So they allege that again, the two of them fought. He got out of the car. Karen intentionally reversed into him at just over 24 miles per hour, breaking her taillight.
Oh, is her taillight broken?
We're going to talk so much about the taillight.
Yeah, the taillight has to do with a lot.
Yes. So the victim was thrown 30 feet. This is, again, their report.
Allegedly.
Allegedly, the prosecution claims that she backs into him at 24 miles per hour. Her taillight, because that's the only damage to her car, really, we're going to get to that. This taillight strikes the passenger side taillight, strikes John in the arm, and causes him to be thrown 30 feet up the embankment, ending up with 2 black eyes, a laceration above one eye, and a 2.5-inch wound on the back of his head.
Anything on the arm?
And then his right arm is covered in wounds, and we'll get to that. So just his head and his right arm. No other damage to his body.
No rib?
All right. McCabe sent a text at 12:40 a.m. saying, "Pull up behind me," and says she observed the car move from where it stopped near the driveway to the far left side of the property near the fire hydrant where he's kind of eventually found. And she sends a text, "Hello," at 12:45 and says that she then watched the car drive away. So her story is he never came in the house. They pulled up. She's like, "I saw the car sitting there. He never came in the house." And then she drove away at 12:45 in the morning.
But we have the car details.
Yes.
But yeah, because 12:36, she entered his
His
house.
house.
Connects to the
The
Wi-Fi.
McCabe's are dirty.
So yes, that's one of the things is like this story doesn't match. We know that she was at John's house, which was 7 minutes away
Right.
at 12:36. So how at 12:45 a.m. could Jen McCabe seen this car drive away?
It was
Dirty.
Okay. And so
Or
the
she's drunk and didn't realize.
or she was off by 15 minutes.
Right.
So the question would be like, what is the motive? The motive that they are presenting, the prosecution is presenting, is that Karen and John, as I said, were fighting. They'd had this big Aruba fight, and then actually, we're going to get into this, but we find out that Karen had gotten Higgins' number. That's the ATF agent I told you to talk about. And they had been exchanging some flirty texts.
Oh, this is a single guy. Token single dude.
For 2 weeks.
Is he even cute?
No, and it's so actually the texts are so cringe, and
Oh,
I'm
I
like,
believe that.
this poor man
Read
had
it.
to read them aloud. She's just like, "You're hot." He's like, "Are you serious?" It's like so, yeah.
Are you serious?
That's
That's
so
a token
embarrassing.
thing like that.
And then can you imagine having to like sit there and like read these aloud for the whole world?
Yeah.
He had to read his own text
You had
messages.
to read like the back and forths. Yes, and they were pretty cringe.
That's so embarrassing. I would die.
And Higgins also claims that he came over to John's house and they watched like the Patriots play,
Yeah.
and that she actually kissed him.
Oh.
Cheater.
So they
Come
exchanged a kiss.
Allegedly.
They were texting. Yes, and so
She
well,
cheated.
I mean, I think at a minimum there was some like emotional cheating happening, but we'll get to how. So they're trying to
You
present.
don't think a kiss is cheating?
Well, yes, but I'm just saying we don't have proof of a kiss.
Okay.
We have proof of awkward text.
Yeah.
Okay. But the point is that the prosecution is trying to present this as like this is her motive.
Messy. Yeah, they're trying to
She's
present him.
mad. She wants to leave John. She's even having this like questionable affair,
Mhm.
and so she was just so mad at him that she just intentionally reversed her car into him and drove off and just left
No
him there
way.
to die
that's
in a blizzard.
intense.
Okay.
Okay. I feel like
No way.
if
There's
I were, I don't necessarily agree with the prosecution.
Okay.
She might have done it,
Uh-huh.
but like didn't realize she was doing it.
I'm with-
Especially
I
if
think
that
she was too
that
drunk.
drunk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I think that they kind of went for a stretch with this intentional murder because I don't believe. It really did take me. I went back and forth on this. I had a really hard time, but I think where I'm falling now is that she didn't do it. But I think if she did do it, it would have been that way. It would have
Right.
been she was so blackout that she
essential.
didn't even know
Yeah.
she hit him.
Right.
And I don't know why you would go home. Like people are like, and then she was calling to like establish an alibi. But I'm like, why would she go home and be like sending him these disgusting voicemails?
Right.
That doesn't make you look like a loving couple.
No.
Right? That's not a good alibi.
No.
Like everyone's talking about how angry you are.
Right.
Another question. They are trying her for intentional homicide.
Mhm.
Can they, if this fails, can they then try her for unintentional?
Well, so she has multiple charges, so the jury can decide.
Oh, so they can level
Correct.
it.
But
I don't know how the system works.
But there was a little bit of drama, which I'm going to get to in the updates, because again, we know that after the fact, they pulled the jurors,
Right.
and they were like, we weren't hung on like the murder charge. Like,
Right.
we unanimously agreed
She's not
she
a murderer.
didn't murder him, and they wanted to drop that charge on this second trial.
It had to do with Barb,
Well, yes, they wanted
the judge.
to eliminate that charge because like this is double jeopardy now. Like if they found her not guilty, but they never officially found her not guilty, so they're still trying her on these same charges.
Yeah.
And it had to do with the fact, well, you're going to get there, but it had to do with the fact that the judge, she wasn't like guiding them well with like understanding,
Yeah.
I want to say diagnosis, but the delivery of the ruling. Like she wasn't guiding them well.
Yeah. So let's talk about the defense's theory. Again, you guys have already figured this out, but what we know off the bat doesn't make sense is this timeline.
Right.
We know that Karen arrived at 12:36 at John's house, and we know it's a 7-minute drive, maybe a little bit faster if she's angry and she's speeding down the road. Okay. But again, how could we see this car leave the house? How could Jen McCabe see the car leave at 12:45?
Right.
Instead, the defense alleges that John entered the Alberts' home and while there was involved in an altercation. So Karen says she pulled up to the house was dark, and she said, like, are you really sure we're welcome here? Like, because they didn't get invited by the homeowners. They got invited by Jen McCabe.
And they didn't really know the homeowners that well.
Yeah, so it's like they like have hung out in social situations, but they're not like biffles.
Right.
And so she's like, go check and see if we're welcome. And she said he got out of the car, he took the cocktail glass with him, and he walked into the house, and he never came back. And she said, and then I started to get angry because like I'm sitting down here in the car waiting. This should take just a minute for you to figure out if we're welcome or not.
Yeah.
And now you're like in the party. And so she starts like hammer calling him from the car. He's not responding. She says she's out there for about 10 minutes and then she left. And we do have some witnesses because there was also the homeowner's son. It was his birthday as well. So he had friends over. And so there were people like coming and going to like pick up people and to come to this party or whatever. And so there are some witnesses who kind of corroborate this story that she was sitting out front in this car alone. It all comes down to whether or not he entered the house, right? Because if he entered the house, then he had to die in the house.
Right.
If he did not enter the house, then that kind of makes the prosecution story.
And we know he walked 80 feet.
Yeah, we know that he took 80 steps and went up or down 3 flights of stairs. And then we know that later on he did like 35 steps or so, 30 something steps, which was 80 feet.
Right.
Okay, so if we are to here, let me tell you about the 3 motives, the 3 potential suspects that the defense presented as who could have
Heard him.
assaulted him in the house.
Okay.
So we start with Brian Higgins, the ATF agent. So Brian, again, was at Waterfall that night. He was actually seen on surveillance play fighting with John. And remember I told you about that inappropriate texting relationship,
Right.
that possible kiss. And we know that John had like seen them, I think not the kiss, but had like seen them interacting on his Ring camera. And he had confronted her and was like, are you hooking up with this guy? This is like kind of a weird vibe
Yeah.
that I'm seeing. About a week before the death, Karen actually just ghosted Brian Higgins. And on the night of his death, Karen completely ignored him. So apparently they show up to the bar and he's at the bar and he's like texting her like, you're not even gonna come say hi to me? Like,
Right.
very awkward vibes. And so they say that Higgins, the reason she ghosted him is because Higgins wanted like a real relationship, the real deal. And she wasn't really looking for that. So she ghosted him. And so potentially Brian was jealous of John. Did they have a fight? And then they dumped the body outside. Brian Higgins, interestingly, destroyed his phone. He took his phone and the SIM card,
Suspicious.
drove them to a dumpster on a military base to dispose of them 24 hours before he was asked to turn over his electronics.
Dirty cops.
So very suspicious.
He knew to do that.
Well, the question too is, was he trying to cover this up or was he trying to cover was there something else on the phone
Right.
that he wanted to cover up? Was he up
Porque no los dos.
And so he claims that he left and he went to the office 7 minutes away where he clocked in at 1:30, then moved some government vehicles for the snowplows, and then got home around 2 a.m. where he had a couple more drinks before going to bed. So first of all,
So
No
much
way.
drinking and driving.
yes,
Yeah.
you've been out at the bar all night and then you're like, a great thing to do would be to go to the police department
And move some snow.
government vehicles.
Yeah.
And then the fact that you get home at 2 a.m. and you're like, what would be good is a couple more drinks right now.
Right.
Like, I think there's some, I don't think that he did it, but I think he might have helped cover it
Right.
up.
Right.
Okay, and then the next person, potential suspect, is Brian Albert, the homeowner. So we know he was a violent drunk. He had a history of punching other police officers. He'd actually been investigated several times for his conduct. He has actually since retired. He also has this dog we're going to talk about. The dog plays into this,
Mm-hmm.
that he had suspiciously rehomed. He had also destroyed his phone, and he sold his house after renovating the basement after all this happened. So,
Wait, he sold his house?
yes,
The one that
the scene of the crime sold to other buyers
Dirty cops.
after he had renovated the basement.
What?
Dirty cops.
So this guy, he was a former Marine. He helped solve the Boston Strangler case and the Craigslist killer case. So, a successful cop, but also
A
one
cop
with
that
history.
a cop that knows how to clean a crime scene.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and then the third suspect is Colin Albert. So this is Brian Albert's 18-year-old nephew. He was at the house for that birthday party, the gathering of young people I told you
Mhm.
about. He was a senior in high school. He had been feuding with John O'Keefe in the weeks leading up to the crime. So it sounds like this all started like years ago. He's O'Keefe's neighbor. It sounds like John O'Keefe woke up one night because he saw him like on the he like alerted the security camera, and he went out and was like on his front lawn, and they had a little altercation, and then it seems like this just kind of like persisted. There are also rumors that John had reported him for selling drugs. It sounds like the rumors are that he was selling steroids. So sounds like someone who might be writing out, right?
Yep.
But the sources claim that John did file a complaint like, hey, there's some drugs being sold in the hood,
Yeah.
but he never named names.
Okay.
But the point is that this is like the motive is like this guy was here and did they already have potential bad blood?
Yeah.
We have social media photos of Colin within days after this event, and he has like his arm around his buddies and his knuckles
All
cut up.
bloody. Oh
Mhm.
no.
And so again, he's the nephew of the owner. He's a family friend of the lead detective we're going to talk about.
Oh.
And he claims that he left with his friend Allie McCabe at 12:10 a.m., that he was never there around the time that O'Keefe would have been there, but suspicious.
That's very suspicious.
Okay, so those are the three potential suspects. I kind of lean towards it was the Alberts and Higgins helped cover it up.
The homeowners.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think I'm leaning towards the homeowners.
Okay, so Kate, what might cause someone to have two black eyes?
Well, those are called raccoon eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't it a basilar skull fracture?
Correct.
Yep.
And it said he had multiple skull fractures, but his only like real injury was to the back of his head.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's possible whether he's struck by a car and falls back or he's hit like
How quickly do they present?
pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if there was just like a push, maybe he got pushed
Right.
or punched once. We know he had like a laceration over his eye.
right.
Maybe he got punched, fell back, hit something. So maybe the goal was not to kill him, but he's got this basilar fracture. That's why he looks like he was, because people like he didn't have marks on his hand like he was in a fight,
So maybe he got jumped.
but maybe he just got like hit once and it was just like
that was
They
it.
invited him to
enough.
the party just to beat
And
him.
we know alcohol is a blood thinner.
that's one of the theories. But I
Yeah.
think maybe not. Maybe he just walked in and this Colin was there, and he's like, everyone's been drinking, and he's like,
What are you doing here?
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Some CW shit.
And then the arm injuries. So
Okay.
have you seen the picture?
No.
It's on the,
Does it look like a dog bite?
everyone Google it. It's a full arm. It's only the one arm. And so some experts testified that these were dog wounds. And others testified that they were from the taillight. I don't know how they could be from the taillight. They 100% to me look like dog wounds.
They definitely look
Let
like
me
dog
see.
wounds. They look like
Flip it.
scratches and a bite.
Yep,
Flip
that's
it.
exactly what the defense's expert
That
said.
is clearly a dog.
Yes. And the Alberts had a dog named Chloe, a 70-pound German Shepherd that was known to be aggressive. She was actually rehomed a few months after this event due to attacking a different human who was trying to break up a dog fight.
Oh God, this is sad.
But again, we had a lot of discrepancy, but the FBI had experts who came in who now they're ruling they can't say the FBI hired them. These were not defense witnesses. This was like the FBI. They had experts who said these are like the people who are like the top, the bigwigs of accident reconstruction. And they said that there's no way that a car could have caused those injuries to the
No.
arm.
Yeah.
So
they look like
Scratches.
bites.
Yeah, it looks like he was scratched and bit around the elbow.
Dragged.
Mhm.
Like, yeah.
Right here. Yeah.
Which is often when you're protecting yourself,
well,
you shield
so
yourself.
they said
with-
it's his right arm. Did he put his right arm on
that's
the
his dominant arm.
What? I assume so.
We can assume that's his dominant.
Also, wouldn't it make sense that maybe there's a physical altercation? The dog
Would attack the
gets
person.
worked up because
Right.
he sees
Yeah.
the fight,
Right.
lunges for the arm. He puts his arm up to protect himself.
That's not good.
The prosecution's expert was pretty weak. He couldn't even say that he was hit by a car, and he admitted that the body placement, the way the body was found, was really odd for like the way this whole like the body flew and
Also,
Right.
yeah.
do they not like get any like animal DNA off his wounds?
I'm so happy you asked. So they didn't actually swab
Of
the
course.
wounds, but they swabbed his clothes.
Right.
They did not find any dog DNA on the swabs from his shirt, but they did find pig DNA.
Pig. That's random.
Okay, so pig, we think pork, right? They said this pig DNA could have come from like a food. So who eats pork treats?
Dogs.
Who eats pig ears?
Dogs.
So we don't have any dog DNA. The theory is that this pig DNA come from something that the dog ate.
Oh.
We also have we have Lucky the snowplow man.
Okay.
Have you heard of Lucky?
Uh-uh.
So everyone's like, this guy is so Boston. He's
That's
just
so funny.
so Massachusetts, like such like a blue collar guy. He is the snowplow guy. He says that he showed up at 2:15 to get a snowplow, and that the snowplow has this like enormous light. It's like driving with a spotlight. He's like, I'm always looking because I care about the animals. So I'm always like making sure I'm not going to hit an animal.
Lucky.
Yes. And he said he first passed the Alberts house at 2:45 a.m. and he didn't see anything on the lawn.
Oh.
So
And it would have been visible from the street.
yes, and it would have been before there was like a ton of snow accumulation. So the theory is the body wasn't there at 2:45.
Oh.
Laddie must have come outside after. And then
But this is just first person with Lucky.
yeah, we don't have like video evidence or anything, but this is a story. And then there's text message data we have. Jennifer McCabe Googled at 2:27 a.m. how long to die in the cold.
Dirty.
And then that search was deleted.
Of course it was.
So
I thought she searched other things too. It was just that.
Well, she searched that at 2:27, and then at like 6 a.m. she started searching that. So the experts for the prosecution say that McCabe got into bed and opened a browser on her phone to read her daughter's sports stats. And so that window opened at 2:27 a.m. when she went to sleep. And so then the next day when the EMS was working on John, Karen kept saying, like, look up how long it takes for someone to die of hypothermia. And so then she says she typed into the search at like 6:23 and 6:24. And so the prosecution tech experts say that 2:27 was just the time like the browser window opened and she just used that browser window to search it. But the defense's tech expert said that's not true. That's not how the data works. She Googled this at 2:27 a.m. So that's a big question.
Karen?
No, McCabe. Allegedly, Karen asked Jen to Google how long to die from hypothermia at 6 in the morning.
Okay.
But there's
So the experts are saying different things. Whether Jen Googled this at 2:27 or whether she just opened a browser at 2:27, that's the question based on the defenses. But you know what is interesting is that
Can't you tell when you Googled something?
Yeah, because when you open a page, it doesn't just open to how long to die in hypothermia.
Right.
Like, you have to type that in for it to
Right.
get into your history.
just telling you what the experts are debating.
Yeah, but the defense expert is saying that's not true.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And Jen McCabe is like, he was my friend. Why would I just Google how long from the die and let him die out there? But I'm like, I think that's what you did. Also, there is a flurry of phone calls and text messages between all the people in this house between like 12:45 and like 2 a.m. And they all claim they were like butt dials.
No.
I'm like,
Okay.
yes, I think when they all left to go establish their alibis,
Yeah.
that they might have been texting. And then again, they're all deleting these and they're like, oh, that was just a butt dial. So I'm like, this
You
is
can't
an
just
awful lot
delete
of
things. Like,
butt
we have
dials.
history for
I know, but the point is that if
that they're trying.
they tried to
get-
delete
get
it,
annoying.
that is suspicious.
That's
Super
very
stupid.
suspicious. Yeah. Okay, I don't think Karen did it now.
I think she was definitely driving drunk.
And then
For sure.
let me wrap this up.
I think these are some dirty police officers. And he sounded like a genuinely nice man.
Yeah, he took in his sister's kid.
Yeah.
He says he had like no enemies. Everyone loved him. So let's talk about the taillight.
Okay.
So at 5:07 a.m., Karen backs out of the garage, and this is all on his camera because remember, he moved his car so she could park in the garage because there was a snowstorm. So she backs out of the car to go get Jen McCabe to help look for John. And in the video, you can see that it appears as though I'm convinced that she struck John's car.
Uh-huh.
So John's car is parked perpendicular. She backs up. It looks like her passenger side taillight corner area
Uh-huh.
strikes like the passenger side front end of his car. So she's claiming that, and there was a little bit of damage to his car that was consistent with the strike that we see on camera. So she claims that like her taillight cracked after that happened.
Mm-hmm.
And later on, you see her pointing out to her dad, like, I've got a cracked taillight, like after the death and everything the next day. The prosecution says, well, where are the broken pieces of the taillight then? They're not in the driveway. But when we get into this, people will argue that the police broke the taillight. And so if you go back and you look at all of the footage of her, of like his ring, like her pulling off or driving off.
Placed
Well,
evidence.
Just pausing, if we go back to like her pulling out of the driveway after she like bumped John's car, people are very back and forth on whether or not there's a cracked taillight or like a shattered taillight.
Okay.
Because the taillight should have been shattered at that point if the theory is that she backed into his body. Okay. Also, the police have footage of her driving past Canton Library on her way to this after party. But there's a 2-minute window missing when she should have been driving back to her house, which would have allowed us to see if the taillight was broken.
So they deleted it.
It's just missing.
You're also, I don't know if you mentioned that
Yeah, these are dirty.
the house that they're at is Canton Police
Yes, I
office.
did.
Like,
Oh, well, I said like when I introduced who she was having.
oh, yeah.
Was that clear to you?
Yeah.
They would have had access to this stuff.
Mm-hmm. Well, it gets better. Okay. And then
Oh yeah, this is definitely
so
conspiracy.
let's talk about the recovery of the taillight pieces.
Okay.
So John is dead. He's been declared dead. The scene is being investigated, okay? From 7:30 a.m. to 5:46 p.m., people are scouring the scene. They're using snow blowers to remove snow layer by layer. They don't find any evidence, okay? Meanwhile, at 3:30 p.m., the police say that they noted the broken taillight when they were interviewing Karen, and they seized her vehicle. This is now 4:12 p.m. when they take her vehicle, load it up, and they take it to the Canton Police Department to the Sallyport where they store the car. So 5:36, it rolls up to the Canton Police Department, which is 2 minutes away from the scene of the crime, the Alberts house.
Enough time to break a glass and
So,
Run the broken glass to the body.
correct. The first piece of taillight discovered at 5:46 p.m.
Mm-mm.
after
way.
the police had possession of the car.
No.
way.
Mhm.
So
And
they
they have this one.
found it
So
already.
then after they find the first piece, within 15 minutes, they find other pieces.
No way.
They find a total of 46 pieces. Like over
all
a
of
few
a
week period,
sudden.
over a few week period. But all of a sudden they find a couple of pieces, right?
Yeah.
And it's like you didn't find them all day. As soon as you have the car, you find them. And
Right.
then what made it even more suspicious, the big reveal. So they had the Sallyport security video of them pulling in the car, and they presented this at court. The prosecution is presenting this.
Idiots.
And
The taillight wasn't broken.
well, then you find out when the defense crosses that this video that they presented as factual was mirrored. So they're thinking, the jury is thinking, they're looking at the
Like the right tailgate, but it's really the left tailgate.
bingo. And you know who's hovering in the background over where the broken taillight would be?
No.
Proctor, who we're going to talk about briefly, the lead investigator. So the theory is that he's over there, breaking the taillight and then going 2 minutes down the road to plant the taillight evidence.
It's fucked up.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and then on Reddit, multiple people have gone out and purchased this Lexus taillight and tried to
You
recreate it.
can't just smash it.
No, they're like, it was smashed. Really is what it was.
No.
It was like people think that someone used like a crowbar or something in order to make it break the way it broke, that there's no way it could have broken the way it broke by striking a person. And there was no damage to the rest of her car. So
There would have been a dent.
Yeah,
like
there
if
was
she hit a body that hard.
Right.
it was just the taillight. And again,
You would think
Or
also
blood.
if he hit
There wasn't any blood on her car.
and there wasn't any
Well,
blood.
there was a hair.
But was there blood on the taillights?
No, but there was a hair.
Okay.
Here's what I want to know is how did that hair survive all of this activity?
Right.
They are staging this. Staged dirty cops.
You would think that also if it hit him, his arm, it would be
He's got cut arms and there's no blood.
no
Yeah, that's
but there's also
ridiculous.
no
glass
glass.
embedded. Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Now there was a little bit of glass on him, but again, he also had the So what they ended up finding was the taillight glass, but also before that they found glass from the
Like a beer bottle?
no, like the glass that he.
Oh
had.
yeah.
But again, if you're trying to stage your scene, you like throw that outside, you know?
Yep.
And then, so we have, in general, the theory is that at a minimum, we have sloppy police work. Now, the weather was atrocious, but the Canton Police Department,
Sloppy police work or intentional police
Well,
work?
Intentional dirty cops.
the Canton Police Department started the search because it was going to be a minute for what do you call them, the stadies, to get out there. And so that's who's supposed to be Massachusetts State Police
Mhm.
are supposed to investigate murders. But we have a blizzard, and they're like, we can't get here for a while. So Canton Police start the search.
And it's Canton police that killed the men.
No, well, they're Boston Police. But the homeowner,
is it Canton
his
police?
brother is a Canton Police detective.
Of course.
Okay, so they are using a snowblower to remove the snow. Like I said, people are saying there wasn't any blood at the scene, really. There were a couple drops. Do you know how they collected those couple drops of blood?
Scooping the snow.
They went to the neighbor, asked the neighbor for some Solo cups because the Alberts never left their house. They just had all these people who were there the night before show up, and they had a secret powwow while the police were outside investigating. No one went into the house to look in the house to question them. So they go to the neighbors, they get some Solo cups, and they scoop up this snowy blood with some Solo cups and put them in a grocery bag and take them to the police department.
No.
Mm-hmm. Now, again, we have to realize this is not their area of expertise, and this was a snowstorm. But this is
So
just
why are
like-
they investigating it?
Because someone has to start investigating until the stadies get there.
But could they not have just locked it down?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. They didn't really secure the site
Is
either.
there not protocol for that?
But I just think it's weird too. You have this whole commotion outside. You don't come out at first when everyone's like running around and showing up. No one comes
Right.
out and is like, "What's going on?
Right.
There's a dead body in my front yard."
Right.
And
No,
then when
because you knew the dead body was
and
sick.
then when you're like, "Oh, there's a dead body in your front yard," you're not like, "Well, I'm a cop." I don't know. I just feel like I don't know. I just like lock in my house and hide. You know?
No, the at first sight
Mm-hmm.
of lights,
I'm out.
I'm out.
I'm on my
Mhm.
front steps watching.
Or at least, at the very least, looking at my window.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shades wide open.
Yeah.
In a robe.
Yeah.
Glass
Look-
of wine.
Like, what's going on, guys?
Well, and I think people think that like there was this party going on, right? And so like if this was really a conspiracy, how could everyone be in on it? But I don't think everyone had to be in on it.
No.
I think most of those kids
True.
didn't have to even know this guy was in the house.
No, they probably were drunk and had no idea what was going on.
And if this fight happened like downstairs or something and everyone else is somewhere else, maybe they didn't know he's here.
Why'd they redo the basement?
So 12 people left the house after this crime and nobody saw the body laying there
Yeah,
because it probably wasn't there yet. They
exactly.
had to wait for the house to clear up to go put it outside.
Right.
Say she killed them.
Security video evidence from the Alberts house is missing for this night. They had a camera, but
Of course.
this night's missing. And the police chief of Canton that lives across the street from Brian Albert,
His is missing too?
his is also missing.
Yeah.
Of course it is.
This is.
They're not even trying.
No.
Like, it's so obvious.
And then so the body was found, as I mentioned, not technically on their property. It was like on an easement. So again, that's very convenient if you're like
Didn't die on my property.
bingo.
Yeah.
And then so the lead investigator, Trooper Proctor, you hear about him? He was actually fired over his unsatisfactory performance
Maybe that's what I was thinking of earlier.
and charged related to alcoholic beverages. So anyway, we think the story is he was lifelong buddies with the Alberts family. He's a lead investigator on this case. He is sending unprofessional texts to friends, family, and fellow troopers about Karen Reed. Things like she's a whack job, she's a C-word, she has no ass. No nudes so far as he's perusing through her phone. And he has to read all these logs in court.
Inappropriate.
The day after they declared a mistrial, he's suspended. And then he's eventually fired over his handling of this case.
Yeah.
So that just kind of gets me. Yeah, I just think now I was going to tell you what I think, but I think I've kind of told you. I think that if she did it, it was not the way that they've portrayed it, but I don't think she did it. And I think
I don't
there's
think she
too
did
much
it.
suspicious stuff.
There's no
Right.
way she did it. And I don't think there's any evidence that is convincing enough to say without a doubt she did it.
And I'm not even sure.
Ignoring the suspicious stuff.
And maybe
Like,
their goal was, yes, I think there's definitely reasonable doubt.
Yeah.
That if she did it, is there really, can they prove it?
Yeah.
But I think also maybe she wasn't necessarily supposed to be the patsy, but like she just became a convenient target when she had this cracked headlight.
Well,
And her running around being like, did I do it? I don't know whether or not she said that, but that's what somewhere else. So was it like all of a sudden she became this like perfect patsy?
she's got TikTok backing her.
And so you're on board now, Kate?
Yeah. I'm on
Those-
board.
No, free Karen.
You're free, Karen?
Free
Karen.
Reed.
Yeah. This
Free Karen Reed.
does not sound like she did it.
Also the fact that they, again, so she, as I mentioned, her retrial started on April 1st. As of this recording, they're doing jury selection.
Yeah.
I cannot believe that. I mean, I guess it's a police officer, but like, I cannot believe that after the mistrial, within minutes, they were like, "We're retrying this case," because they can opt. They can
Right.
say,
Oh, yeah.
We're
They
not gonna
want
try
her
it.
down.
Right.
Because if she doesn't go down, somebody's going to turn the camera on them.
Yeah.
I don't think she's going down.
No, she.
"But is
There's
it?"
not enough evidence.
But here's the thing: is there going to be another mistrial? Because how can she have an impartial jury?
They're going to run it till she doesn't have money.
So here's what we have. Well, she's already spent like $5 million. She said, and she like people just like buy her food when she goes into restaurants, and that's how she like survives right now.
Oh my God.
So there was a lawyer who was an alternate juror on the original trial, but did not deliberate. So she has since joined Karen's team,
Mm-hmm.
and then the original prosecutor who flubbed this was replaced by a special prosecutor, Hank Brennan. He's a private attorney who previously represented Whitey Bulger.
Boom.
So it all comes back.
Dirty cops.
At the same time, John O'Keefe's family and friends, as if you watch the documentary, like they're very Karen did this, and so his family has actually filed a wrongful death suit against Karen, and they're also suing like the bars, the C.F. McCarthy's and Waterfall for over serving.
Mm-hmm.
And the judge there did just make a ruling that they have to delay that criminal. She can't have to like prepare for this criminal trial and the civil case at the same time. So that's all going to be postponed until after this.
Gosh, she's going to have no money.
It's going to be like Diddy,
Yeah.
you know? But I bet you actually if she gets out of this, she's probably going to get like a book deal or if she can.
I mean,
If
did
she
she
can-
not make anything off Netflix?
Oh, yeah. Well, HBO.
Oh, yeah.
And then again, we now have having polled to know that the jury acquitted her on the murder charge, but were hung on a manslaughter charge. So at the time, they say that 9 were voting guilty and 3 not guilty.
Yeah.
We also have since had an audit of the Canton Police Department's handling of this case. And let me just So I'm just going to finish with those thoughts, okay?
Okay.
The audit revealed that first responding officers should have photographed Boston police officer John O'Keefe at the location of where he was found before fire rescue moved him to the rescue.
Okay.
All interviews of critical witnesses, including Jennifer McCabe and Carrie Roberts, should have been conducted at Canton Police Department on January 29th after John O'Keefe was transported to the hospital. But again, I don't know about Carrie Roberts, but they just had everyone in the house just conspiring,
Goodness.
coming up with the story,
Right.
not being questioned by police. Consensual recorded witness interviews should have been conducted. The MSP, the Massachusetts State Police, along with Canton PD, should have maintained a police presence at 34 Fairview Road, pending the secondary search, because pretty much they just said, hey guys, start driving. Can you just drive past this house whenever you come to work so you could just see if any new evidence shows up?
Yeah, no.
But there was no hey, we're taped off.
Yeah, there was no
one's coming.
securement of it.
And then all video footage files maintained on Canton Police Department's computer system of Karen Reed's Lexus while it was housed at the Canton Police Department should have been requested and turned over early in the Karen Reed case to lead investigators for any action as deemed appropriate. So this independent audit was like, you guys messed up this investigation.
Right.
So anyway, case in progress. We'll see what happens.
Free Karen.
Are you going to start wearing pink?
Oh, that's her color. His is blue, right?
Okay. And then the last thought is that day one of the juror selection, of the 92 potential jurors, 0 raised their hand when asked if they were friends or family with any of the witnesses, which does seem wild given how big, it's like a little incestuous town.
Yeah.
Where is she being tried?
Dedham?
Dedham.
Dedham.
Jurors were asked if they'd ever heard or talked about this case, and every single juror raised their hand.
Well,
Yep.
yeah, of course.
Oh.
How were they allowed?
But they
to
also
be-
said, well, I mean, they're removing people, okay? But the
Yeah.
point is that they asked if any of the jurors had formed any opinions on the case, and half of them had raised their hands. So
Yeah.
again, there's so much publicity now, whether you're free Karen
She's not
Reed
gonna
or
get a
not.
fair trial.
Yeah, I don't know how it cannot end in a mistrial.
Right.
They're
Again.
gonna argue for that. They're gonna, like, she's not gonna have a fair trial because of jury.
Well, yeah, just mean either way, it's going to be another mistrial. It's going to be a hung jury again.
Right.
Also, can
And-
Marv get canceled?
Yeah, I don't have.
You have to watch the videos. Her behavior.
Well, I
in
mean,
the
I
court-
watched the 5-episode documentary on my way back from Iceland, but yeah.
but like I would watch like the live stream of the court itself, and she is awful.
Yeah, they're saying too that she's made a lot of questionable calls already on this.
They think she
Right.
has roots in the police department.
I'm sure it's all.
So
All right, well that's what we have.
free Karen.
Free Karen. Any other final thoughts before we sign off?
No, that was really good. You very much convinced me.
Guys, just a reminder, don't forget to check out our Facebook and Instagram pages at 3 Scheme Queens. That's the number 3 Scheme Queens, all one word. We're also on Reddit, same username. If you want to check out our website, go to 3schemequeens.com and you can find links to our social media accounts, our Buzzsprout page, all of our episodes, additional content, our contact page, and our discussion board where you can engage with us and share any updates on the topics that we have discussed. Let us know how we're doing and what you want to hear next. There are also opportunities to financially support us. There are links to buy us a cup of coffee, links to our recently updated merch store, and affiliate links. And as always, if you choose not to financially support us, we appreciate the follows, the downloads, listens, the likes. Kate, what should the people do?
Yeah, I want you to take out your phone and text 3 people, 2 of which are Team Karen, and 1 of which are Team Boston Police. And then I want you to scroll on down, leave us a 5-star review, leave us a comment, share us with your friends and family, share us on your Instagrams, interact with us on our social media accounts.
Tune in next Tuesday.
So yes, we will see you next Tuesday.
See you
It's
next.
gonna be the anniversary of Titanic. Yeah. So we're gonna revisit those conspiracies.
Yup.
All right, we'll see you next Tuesday.
See you
Next Tuesday.